Would Will Stein leave Oregon for Ohio State? That's a discussion.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. This episode brought to you by friends over at Game Time, because they're awesome. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Staff turnover at Ohio State could be affecting Oregon. What does Kenyon Sadiq do in 2025, and how Dana Altman gets it right? All coming up on today's show. But according to Pete Nakos of On3, credible name in the business at a major publication, so not even just a speculative idea, Will Stein could be a target for Ohio State's vacant offensive coordinator position. Now, our old pal Chip Kelly is off to be the head coach of the Raiders under Pete Carroll, which is wild. That is wild, since Chip Kelly ran Pete Carroll out of USC and out of Autzen Stadium on a great night in 2009, and all of a sudden they're on the same staff in the NFL. Go figure. It's crazy. So, would Will Stein leave Oregon for Ohio State? I have seen way crazier things happen. Now, this would come down to who Will Stein, if he is seriously being targeted, or if he's seriously considered, because he is seriously being targeted, or at least that's what Nakos has indicated. His name is coming up in conversations, despite the frustration of some Oregon fans at how he's called back-to-back Heisman Trophy finalists at quarterback in the last couple of years. But the consideration for Will Stein is, who do you think is going to elevate your platform more over the next couple of years? Because something else that was reported in a piece by Zach Neal over at USA Today is that he interviewed, Will Stein did, for the San Diego State job. They ended up giving that to Sean Lewis, who was the Colorado offense coordinator and was a head coach at, I believe, Kent State before that. But Will Stein has always, to me, given off the vibe of a guy that wants to be a head coach one day and has that sort of trajectory. Can he achieve that at Oregon? Yes, he absolutely can. You saw, even before Dan Lanning arrived, Marcus Arroyo, whatever you thought of him, got a head coaching job at UNLV. He did not succeed there. Joe Moorhead, who is also reportedly one of the targets, I'll touch on him in a moment, for Ohio State's offensive coordinator position, was the OC at Oregon, ended up getting the head coaching job at Akron. Kenny Dillingham, Arizona State. He just had, of course, a lot of success this past year. So to look at Oregon and say, well, it's not as big of a brand as Ohio State. Okay, fact check, true. Ohio State just won the national championship. Ohio State has, got a more storied history than Oregon football. Both are tier 1 brands in the modern college football era. But can you become a head coach if you remain the offensive coordinator of Oregon? Yes, absolutely. But what helps you take that next step as a coordinator more than anything else? Having a lot of team success. Dave Aranda is the head coach at Baylor. How did he get there? He was the defense coordinator on that 2019 LSU national championship team. You just go down the list. Steve Sarkisian, what'd he do? Won a national championship at Alabama, goes and gets the head coaching job at Texas, even though he had 2 stops previously that, for various reasons, some on the field, some off, did not work out. So, technically he was successful at Washington. He never won more than 9 games, but it was a mess when he took over. Anyway, that's the traditional kind of trajectory, is you get to that level and then you get interest. Now, Ohio State just won a national championship, and they have to replace both their coordinators. I have thoughts on that coming on later on today's show. But Chip Kelly is off to the NFL, whereas most coaches might try to turn that into a head coaching opportunity. The timing of the college football schedule makes that harder than it used to be. But it's not as if Oregon had 0 levels of success. After 1 year, apparently, Stein was able to interview for a pretty darn solid group of 5 head coaching opportunity at San Diego State. So would he view Ohio State as being able to provide him with a platform and opportunity as an offensive coordinator to be a head coach that he wouldn't get at Oregon? That's a calculation he probably knows how to make better than you or I do, because He knows the personnel Oregon has, what they can be, and would also probably have a solid idea, since he faced them twice this year, of what Ohio State could be going forward. Now, if you're trying to maximize the team's success and ride that wave to be the highest caliber coordinator that you can be, or to be the hottest name in coaching circles, and you're trying to figure out who's going to win more over the next couple of years, that's going to come down to the quarterback position. But for Will Stein, he probably looks at it and goes, look, wherever I'm going, my offense is going to produce a quarterback that puts up a really high completion percentage, throws for a whole heck of a lot of yards, and could very well be, again, a Heisman Trophy finalist. So if he has that sort of confidence in himself, then yeah, he wouldn't care where he goes. And maybe you would want to go to Ohio State. Oregon's got a bunch of really good receivers. None of them are as good as Jeremiah Smith. I think DeCorian Moore has got all the potential in the world. He hasn't taken a snap of college football yet. Jeremiah Smith has to be in college for 2 more years. Would you rather deal with all the turnover you've got at Oregon offensively, and what will happen on the defensive side of the ball as well? It's not as important per se, but certainly matters when you're trying to get hired as an offensive coordinator. Helps if you have overall team success, but really a school is going to look at what have you done as the coordinator of that side of the ball. What's your recruiting profile been? How have your teams, how has your side of the ball performed? Those are the primary factors, and also where are you coming from? But would you be able to go to Ohio State? Is Jeremiah Smith that attractive? Maybe. I mean, that guy's ready to play in the NFL right here, right now. He's got 2 years of college football left. Imagine getting a dial-up plays to him for the next couple of seasons. Imagine getting a dial-up plays to DeCorian Moore for the next couple of seasons. So that's the first consideration. The second consideration comes from Ohio State, which, according to the report, have other names in the mix. There's the internal option, which is Brian Hartline, who is their stud recruiter as a wide receivers coach. Joe Moorhead, who I always liked at Oregon. I thought he did a good job. I don't know how the dynamic worked exactly between him and Mario Cristobal. Based on what I know, I get the sense that Moorhead wanted certain things to be different in the offense, but they weren't, because Mario wanted to do things a certain way and he was the head coach. But Joe Moorhead, as an offensive coordinator, has proven time and again he is incredibly capable. Going back to his time at Penn State, he hasn't worked out as a head coach at Mississippi State or at Akron, but as an OC, guy's proven he's pretty darn good. And I always felt like he had great situational play calls. But another name on this list that, frankly, if I were Ohio State, would be my top target, even above Will Stein, a guy who I like, Shannon Dawson down at Miami. Mario Cristobal's offensive coordinator. See what a wonderful world of a connected web college football is? It's really fun. Shannon Dawson this year had Cam Ward also as a Heisman Trophy finalist. And with Mario Cristobal, who didn't have a great track record at the quarterback position, took Cam Ward and made him into a top 5 draft pick. And he was not going to be that had he gone into the draft, which he thought about doing after leaving Washington State following the 2023 season. So those are the other candidates. I think if I were Ohio State, ranking those candidates to be the offensive coordinator, I don't know enough about Brian Hartline, but man, the recruiting prowess he brings to the table and the risk of losing him to someone that will make him a coordinator, that'd be a solidly strong motivating factor for me if I were Ryan Day. And if I didn't love him as a play caller, how attached is he to being a play caller? Can I, as Ryan Day, just take that back over? Don't know. But I would go Shannon Dawson 1, Will Stein 2, Hartline 3, and Joe Moorhead 4. And one thing I'd be curious to see, if Will Stein continues to generate steam here beyond this report from NACOS, is he just went out, Ryan Day did, in the last couple of years, whether it's this past season bringing in Chip Kelly or Jim Knowles after Oregon went and beat him in Columbus in 2021. He just won with a couple of veteran coordinators. Does he want to go back to the well on that front? That'd be a Joe Moorhead sort of approach. Or does he not care about age whatsoever? I'm not sure. I just noticed that Jim Knowles and Chip Kelly are a little bit crustier, a little bit older, been around for a long time, whereas Will Stein, I think we've seen in the last couple of years, has got a lot of potential, is doing very well right here, right now, but he is not at his ceiling as an offensive coordinator. Does Ryan Day want to bring him in knowing he's going to continue to get even better than he is right now. That, I think, is a fascinating calculation. So I'm sure none of you will have any thoughts on this, but if by chance you do, drop them in the YouTube comments or hit me up on Twitter. That was sarcastic, of course. I know you will all have thoughts, and I love that you do. Staff turnovers a thing. Kenyon Sadiq also a thing, and boy, he is... Is he Tyler Warren? I don't know if Sadiq is Tyler Warren. I do know you should check out Game Time, though. If you're looking for tickets for your next big event, whether it's a concert, comedy show, sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price, that can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Here's how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the work for you. All the hard work that you don't want to do, yeah, the app's doing that for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. The curated deals make it super simple to find great tickets at a great price. No more sifting through thousands of options. And I've used Game Time Picks before. Let me tell you, it is giving you what you want from a ticketing company. That's why you should check them out. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Ready to make your next event even better? I hope you are. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, and that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I am the chair and vice chair and secretary and treasury secretary and or just treasurer if you prefer, of a lot of different fan clubs. You know, Amari Washington's one, Terrence Ferguson. I've retired that role now after a successful 3-year tenure, so I present my resume to the chairman position and everything underneath of the Kenyon Sadiq fan club because this guy's great. So his true freshman season, Sadiq had just 5 catches for 24 yards and a touchdown. And then he's someone who Will Stein talked about in the offseason as, yeah, I have to be able to get him the ball more. And guess what? He got the ball a heck of a lot more, almost quintupling his reception total, going from 5 to 24. He went from 24 yards to 308 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns, both of which, of course, came in the Big Ten championship game against Penn State. He is an absolute mega talent. Highly rated 4-star guy coming out of high school in the state of Idaho, and I think he is about to pop. I would be stunned, barring an injury, if his numbers are not all noticeably higher than what he did this past year. 24 for 308 and 2 touchdowns. I don't know how he only catches 2 touchdowns. I know it took Oregon a while to get a tight end into the end zone this past season, but Sadiq can score in more ways because, you know, they can hand the ball off to him or do a little pop pass down on the goal line. See if you can come up with this. Be honest, of course. Trivia question. What was Kenyon Sadiq's touchdown in his true freshman season in 2023? In which game did it occur and on what style of play? So I am incredibly bullish on what he brings to the table. And so are some of you. Mailbag questions, wide open to all of you. YouTube comments, Twitter, become a Locked On Ducks insider. Link in the description below. You can get a free 14-day trial. Then it's just $5 a month. You get priority mailbag access and other perks as well. Darkwing Duck 91 says, hey, Spencer, thanks for the name shout out the other day and answering my question. Well, here we go. Here's another. Should the 2025 offense be run through Kenyon Sadiq? No sarcasm here. I'm not asking if it needs to be to the level of Tyler Warren at Penn State, but should Sadiq see between 6 to 8 targets a game? I believe he's the best overall returning player on the roster. Ooh, best overall returning player on the roster. That is not in it. It's not as insane as it sounds when you consider Oregon just lost 2 NFL caliber offensive tackles, one of whom's going in the first round, a first round projected defensive tackle in Derek Harmon, a second or third projected round pick in Jordan Birch. That's tough. I'm going to go Mateo Uyunglele for best overall player, but Sadiq is easily a top 5 returning player on the roster. He might not even be outside the top 3, but As for his target share, 6 to 8 a game, when you said it, I initially thought was low, but then you realize what that actually means for a tight end because of how involved they have to be in the running game. What I think you're going to see from Sadiq next year is you'll see 6 to 8 targets / touches minimum. Because remember, they will hand the ball to Kenyon Sadiq from time to time or give him a little pop pass. And, that's not it. It's a reception, but it's really a rush. He had 5 carries for 24 yards this year. So overall, he had 29 touches. He's going to blow past that number next season. And he's just someone who can run a lot of different routes. You can get him the ball on screen passes, and he can run fly sweeps, end around, pop pass, middle of the field, down the field. We haven't seen him demonstrate what was kind of one of his defining traits coming out of high school, which was his leaping and contested catch ability. I wonder if that doesn't get broken out a little bit because that was more a T-Ferg thing, but now Kenyon Sadiq's going to be the number 1 tight end. But I'm with you that this does not need to be a Tyler Warren level run the offense through him because there are no other options around that are viable. You've got Evan Stewart, DeCorian Moore's coming in, Malik Benson, the transfer from Florida State, and then a bunch of guys ready to pop like a Justice Lowe, Jeremiah McClellan, Jurion Dickey, Kyler Casper. There are a lot of receiving options in there. And don't forget Jamari Johnson, the second tight end from Louisville. I'm sure we'll have some sort of role. I don't think it'd be huge per se, but I don't think, Will Stein or whoever the offensive coordinator is looks at Sadiq and says, let's run the offense through him. I think he's just someone who you heavily feature, but you continue to allow the offense to be what it's been for the last couple of years, which is get back there and facilitate, make the right reads, go wherever it is, and trust you've got a high-level playmaker wherever you're throwing the football. And Sadiq is one of those guys who you do drop a couple of individual plays for. But bullish on Sadiq? Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back to the coaching staff aspect of this for just a moment because Ohio State, after winning a national championship, has lost its defensive coordinator, its offensive line coach, and offensive coordinator. That's a lot to replace in 1 year. I would be truly surprised if you could find me a team, and I'm sure there are some serious sleuths out there who know things even I don't even come up with all the time. Give me the last team to win a conference championship and or a national championship that was replacing both coordinators and a major position coach, which to me is offensive line, defensive line, secondary, or receivers. Not that linebackers and tight ends aren't important or running backs, but those would be the position coaches I think have the highest level of impact, just off the top of my head. Both coordinators and a major position coach. Which team has gone on to win a conference or national championship? I am not saying Ohio State's not on Oregon's schedule next year. I am not saying to look at the Buckeyes and see them as a team that can't go out and beat anybody in the country. If Oregon ends up matching up with Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game next year, rest assured that is not going to be the same level of Ohio State team. It just isn't. This is very Washington-esque once Penix and the receivers went out the door. Now, 2 of the receivers are back, but who's playing quarterback? My guy Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes is psyched to watch the position group battle. He said it's legitimately going to be awesome. They've got a trio of options in there. Or 2 options, sorry, because one guy, Devin Brown, transferred out. But between Lincoln Keenholz and Julian Sayin, both guys have been in the program for at least 1 year. Sayin was the more highly rated recruit, was originally at Alabama. Now he's Ohio State. That could be a really, really fun quarterback battle for him. But they're just replacing a lot. So a team that on any given year can be a hurdle to Oregon's championship aspirations and was this year for the second time is not going to be at that same level, in my view, in 2025. Now, my everydayers are probably thinking to themselves, or perhaps yelling out loud back at me, but Spencer, you don't think Oregon can get to that same sort of level? No. I do not think Oregon can be as good in 2025 as they were in 2024. But could they give themselves an opportunity to prove me wrong by maybe winning the Big Ten championship game will be an advantage next year, whereas this year it was obviously a disadvantage for who Oregon had to play in the college football playoff. But maybe next year it'll be an advantage, and you'll think back to this conversation and go, oh yeah, Ohio State lost a whole bunch of guys and a whole bunch of coaches as well, and it takes a while to get things going. One reason that I was high on Oregon coming into this year, staff continuity. Lanning had the same offensive and defensive coordinator. That had not happened in like a decade. I believe the last staff to have that, I think there was a Helfrich staff that had the same offensive and defensive coordinators from one year to the next. They move around a lot, but losing both in the same year, when a head coach hasn't moved, I can't remember when that's happened to Oregon, and I don't anticipate that will anytime soon. But as I discussed earlier, maybe an offense coordinator in Will Stein will be on the move. We'll wait and see how this all plays out. But I look at Ohio State and Oregon and say they should both be high-level teams next year. Don't think either one's as good as they were this year. But you know what? The only team I feel confident in saying they will be great next season right now is Texas. Texas will be really good. Their defensive line is disgustingly good. I think Arch Manning has got plenty of potential at quarterback. Get past the name factor. Guy could be really, really good and is kind of a traditional high school recruit who's come in, waited his turn, developed, and now he's ready to go. So that's the only team I think automatically is great next year. There are a lot of questions in college football. And think about this. When you ponder my position on Oregon in the national championship come 2025, I am not always right. I try to be right more than I am wrong, but I am not always right. That's the way the cookie crumbles. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below or hit me up on Twitter as always. Can Dana Altman fix it? Is there a simple fix? Yes, but also not really. Can Dana fix this thing? Can Oregon get back to being the team they were at the start of the year when they'd excited everyone, built one of the best resumes in college basketball, were trending towards being a top 2 or 3 seed, at least in the big dance? Yes. Yes, he can. I have seen Dana Altman take a team that you have given up on, lost hope with, and turn it around in the final weeks of the season. Lest we forget what happened 1 year ago. At this time, Oregon's resume was, even though they're on a horrible 3-game losing streak right now, 2 games on the road to unranked teams and 1 game at home to a team that had a sub-500 record in Big Ten play in Nebraska. That was on Sunday, and that game, yikes, not good for many reasons. A year ago at this time, Oregon was still in a worse position to get to the NCAA tournament because right now, they don't have to do anything crazy over their final 9 regular season games to get themselves automatically into the tournament. They would have to do something crazy to recapture their status as a top 3 or 4 seed. Right now, I would just love for them to get in as a 6 or 7 as a non-automatic qualifier, which would mean winning the Big Ten championship, which in I think 15-team tournament, 14-team tournament, and 18-team conference, not going to be as straightforward as it was a season ago. It's just, there are a lot of good teams in the Big Ten. We've seen how difficult it is. But Pac-12 basketball was really good last year, and Oregon made a run. So the question becomes, do I believe they can do it? Yes. Do I feel like they're going to do that this week? No. Because you got Michigan on Wednesday and Michigan State on Saturday. Not a good time for a road trip up north to the Mitten State. That is a poorly timed trip for the Ducks, but they put themselves in this spot. They're more than capable as a basketball team of winning both of those games. And if they do, all will be forgiven. Well, okay, not all. Some will be forgiven for what they've done in the last week. But winning one game, either one, don't care, would be great. This question came from LD. Mailbag. Outside of the 3-point shot selection, what things would you say need to be fixed to get back on track for the men's basketball team? Well, I agree with the premise of your question. Sometimes people, when they're on this side of the microphone, get asked a question. I don't accept the premise of your question. No, I fully accept and agree with it. The shot selection is so maddening, and this falls on the coaching staff as much as it falls on the players. Coaching staff have called out the guys a couple times this year, saying, we had a game plan, didn't stick to it. One time, Dana Altman, I forget which game, literally said guys went rogue. I think that was the Purdue game. We had a game plan, and we went rogue on offense. Like that's literally what he said, and I'd never heard that before. Like that's concerning, and it has continued to spiral since then. But Oregon is not a good three-point shooting team for various reasons. Keyshawn Barthelemy has come back down to earth. Jackson Shelstad's also cooled off a bit. Nate Biddle is streaky. TJ Bamba is bad shooting threes, but they don't necessarily take horrible shots all the time. They're just too willing to settle. And what they have to do to maximize their offensive potential and get back to what they were early in the season, get Nate Biddle more post touches the way they did with N'Faly Dante last year, get him in more pick and roll situations like they did with Dante, an adjustment I called for during the season, and then that became Oregon's entire offense down the stretch, Kuznard and Dante running a pick and roll. They rode that to a Pac-12 tournament championship run, of course. But they have got to be dead set on getting the ball into the paint to create better looks on the outside. And that 100% starts with two guys, Jackson Shelstad and TJ Bamba. I want to start with Bamba because he is not shooting the three-point well. It is a historic regression. Historic. This is a veteran guy, fifth year of college basketball. He has always been in the mid to upper 30s. He's always been a great three-point shooter, and this year he's bad, but he is still trying to shoot his way out of it, and I'm not opposed to that. He needs to hit the shot for Oregon to have a good offense. You can't have a two-guard that can't shoot. What you need to have, though, is a two-guard in TJ Bamba that takes the ball and first and foremost gets into the paint. When he drives, he is so strong. He can finish with either hand. He is crafty. He can get his shot off in traffic. He is really tough to stop. He can get to the free throw line, too. He needs to shoot no fewer than 8 two-point shots inside the free throw line before he shoots a single three. Get the ball to go through the basket, maybe get yourself to the free throw line, then try to shoot the catch and rhythm, or the catch and shoot three in rhythm. But when he comes down the floor and just a guy sagging off, and rather than taking that space to start his drive, he just pulls up for three, I rip my hair, what little I have up there, off of my head. Just so we're clear, I intentionally keep my hair short. I could grow as much as I want. But now let's go to Shelstad. He's got to be more aggressive. And this actually goes into John's question. Do you think Shelstad needs to start being a little more aggressive offensively? In the game last night, it looked like he was way too timid, not creating his own shot or even wanting the ball. I feel like the offense needs to start running through him for Oregon to start having a successful February and March. 100% agree. He does not, however, have to be all the way aggressive scoring the basketball, but he has to be able to do a better job creating for others. So Shelstad this year had a horrible start shooting the ball, and it was puzzling. You went, wait, as a true freshman, he was mid to upper 40s in field goal percentage and mid 30s three-point percent, and he's getting worse as a sophomore, and he was. But he shot his way out of it. And in the start of Big Ten play, he was awesome. Teams have made some adjustments now. But he's shooting 44% from the field and 37% from three. That's where I expect him to be. Here's the problem. He is averaging fewer than 6 assists per game. Now, he leads Oregon in assists with 59 this year. Keyshawn Barthelemy is second with 57 total. But Shelstad is so quick off the ball, he should be able to average 3 to 4 assists per game. And the fact that he doesn't is 100% on the coaching staff in addition to himself. But when he takes the ball on offense, let's say Oregon gets out in transition, they try to run, can't find the right pass. All right, let's set up the offense. Shelstad just kind of passes and walks away. That can't continue. It cannot continue. He has to be willing to get downhill and create for himself. He is a lethal mid-range and float game player. He's not a super big guy, so some defenders can make it tougher on him. But he has to find a way to use his quickness to get around those guys and create opportunities for his teammates, because he does not rack up assists in the way that he is fully capable of. And he has to score, of course. If he doesn't score, that's a problem for Oregon. But his assist totals to me are way too low. He has not had 5 or more assists in a game since January 12th at Penn State. He had 17 points and 8 assists. By the way, Oregon won the game. And their offense came out clicking early and often. He had 8 assists in that game. Since then, he has had 8 assists in the 5 games that have followed. That, as much as his score, like he has not scored the ball well all the time, but he's going to get points. He's been in double figures all but one of the last 9 games, and he was scoreless at UCLA, only took 2 shots. That's not okay. But he needs to create. He's got to get, so Bamba needs to drive to finish, and Shelstad needs to drive to float or pass more. That's how Oregon, I think, offensively gets back to where they were at the beginning of the season. But more than even those 2 things, Dana's got to get these guys' heads right, because they came out in a must-win game against Nebraska at home, and they were flat. They were flat and started slow. So a lot of guys have got to turn things around. Dana, Shelstad, Bamba, Biddle's got to get going again. Bartholomew needs to find his stroke. A lot of guys have to turn things around. But this is going to be a tough week for Oregon Hoop. It is a tough week for Hoops. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. But until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.